Back to money news. The big news over the weekend was the big banks abolishing fees on automatic teller machines. If you used a foreign bank, as they'd call it, the normal $2 fee you'd pay if you went to a bank that's not your own. Now, take, for example, Anna Bligh, the Australian Bankers Association chief executive. She said, it's a boon for customers and makes banking more affordable for everyday Australians. This is the latest in a suite of initiatives by banks to create better products and services for banks and to boost customer choice. A competitive banking system is good for customers and good for the sector. Take that at face value, quite clearly. If you don't have to pay the $2, that is a good thing. But I want to take you back to what you were doing in around June 2009. Because that was the point at which there was peak ATM use in Australia. It jumped to around about 75,000 monthly withdrawals, 75 million monthly withdrawals. Since that point in time, it's now dropped below 50 million. So in other words, it's dropped by almost 1/3 since that time. My suggestion is that the banks have an ulterior motive. The real reason why they've scrapped the $2 fee is because the usage of ATMs is declining and they want to get rid of the ATMs to save money. And that ultimately would be worth more than the $2 fee. Martin North is with Digital Financial Analytics and has been watching the banks for many years. Many thanks for your time, Martin. Do you reckon I'm onto something here?
Well, I think you're right. There's no doubt that the total volumes of transactions are declining. And, of course, the number of ATMs actually on the ground are also declining. So we've already seen ATMs being taken away. And, I have this theory that the ATM is really old banking. If you think about 50 years or so it's been around, but it is being replaced by other payment mechanisms, mobile payments, by PayWave and all those things. And eventually, over time, I suspect that the ATMs will just pass into history.
In fact, they'll end up being in museums and museum pieces. So ultimately what happens from the bank's point of view, if let's say, for example, over the next 4 or 5 years, you could take out 25 or 30% of your ATMs and the cost savings from that, and given the fact that, say, there are around 32,000 ATMs in total in Australia today, if you could get rid of 1/3 of them but give people access to all of the ATMs that are out there owned by the banks, that clearly is going to be a significant saving for those banks.
Well, that's right, and I believe there is some discussion potentially about the banks sharing the infrastructure and sharing the ATM networks completely. For that very reason, that effectively you've got more and more ATMs that are effectively losing money now. Simply not enough people are using them. There are costs involved in maintaining them on the networks. So effectively, this is about managing out a legacy system, as it were, and keeping it there for as long as people really need it, but essentially perhaps also encouraging people to use other payment mechanisms.
So am I being terribly cynical, Martin, in suggesting that the banks managed to spin this in the most positive light that they possibly could by suggesting this was a wonderful initiative by major banks to help consumers and make banking more affordable?
Well, I mean, it's just a good news story because you don't have to pay the $2, but I do think they gave it maximum coverage and maximum spin. And look, the banks needed a good news story because effectively they've had a fairly rotten ride over the last few months. So so I guess not surprising they pushed it to the max, but let's not overreact. This is a relatively small amount of money we're talking about in terms of they're given up. It will help people in the bush particularly, but, there are other things in play here. It isn't just the generosity of their hearts.
I'll tell you what, no, did we ever imagine that banks would actually do something from the generosity of their hearts? Not ever. Martin North from Digital Financial Analytics, we appreciate your time here on the program.
Good to talk to you. Cheers.
Yeah, give us a call here.